we have 30 reasons why Zambia is not what you think it is. Let's go ahead and get right into this, man. I'm gonna like the video. Link to this vid will be in the description, guys. Let's check it out.
That's for Mars, a lake that shakes the ground. And the biggest mammal migration on Earth happens in a country most people can't find on a map. By the end of this video, Zambia will go from a country you've never thought about to one you'll never forget. Starting off from fact 30, we're opening with the one that makes your palms sweat just watching it. Victoria Falls is shared between Zambia and Zimbabwe, but Devil's Pool falls on the Zambian side, and it might be the most terrifying place on Earth you can choose to swim. In the dry season, when the river calms, you can swim right to the very lip of the falls. Nothing between you and a 100-meter drop, but one natural ledge of rock, the Zambezi thundering over the edge inches from your face. People do this on purpose, and they say it's the most alive they've ever felt. Fact 29.
Fam.
Now let's go from the scariest spot to the oldest.
That's too close to the edge for me. I'm not gonna hold you. That's too close to the edge.
In 2023, archaeologists digging at Kalambo Falls up on the Tanzanian border pulled 2 logs out of the ground. 2 interlocking logs joined by a notch that somebody deliberately cut. And when they dated it, the numbers stopped everyone cold. At least 476,000 years old. That's older than us. I mean, Homo sapiens didn't even exist yet. Some now extinct human ancestor was doing joinery nearly 500,000 years before the first pyramid. Fact 28. The Serengeti wildebeest migration is one of nature's true wonders, right? Millions of animals, known the world over. But it's not the biggest mammal migration on Earth.
Ain't these the same wildebeest that killed Mufasa in Lion King?
That title goes to a place almost nobody's heard of, and it's made of bats. Every year, up to 10 million straw-colored fruit bats pour into one tiny swamp forest in Kasanka, one of Zambia's smallest parks. The swarm gets so thick it shows up on weather radar, and scientists still can't explain where they all come from. Fact 27. Time to kill an assumption. Picture Africa, and you probably picture towering mountains, but Zambia's highest point, Mafinga Central, near the Malawi border, barely reaches 2,339 meters, modest by continental standards. And that's the fascinating part. It means Zambia isn't a land of peaks at all. The whole country is essentially one enormous high plateau, lifted up and spread flat. An entire nation sitting on a giant raised table. Fact 26. Let's come back to that waterfall. Victoria Falls is the largest sheet of falling water in the world, over 1,700 meters wide, dropping around 108 meters, about twice the height of Niagara. Locals named it Mosi Oatunya, the smoke that thunders, and the spray is visible for kilometers. At full flow, more than 500 million liters go over the edge every minute. But the seasonal swing is so extreme that in the dry months, parts of it slow to a trickle, and you can walk across the exposed riverbed at the very top. Fact 25. Head up to the Bangweulu Wetlands in the north, and you'll find something that exists nowhere else on Earth. A wild antelope called the black lechwe, found only here. The wetland's name roughly translates to where the water meets the sky, which, when you see it, is exactly right. It's also one of the last strongholds of the shoebill, this enormous prehistoric-looking stork that genuinely looks like it should have gone extinct with the dinosaurs. Around 350 of them live here.
I'm not gonna hold you. If I seen that mug, I'd be scared to death, bruh. Like, look at the beak on that. Oh my.
Watched over by local rangers actually called the Shoebill Guards. Best job title I've heard all week. Fact 24. On Zambia's southern border sits Lake Kariba, and as the valley began to flood in 1958, thousands of animals were left stranded on hilltops that were turning into islands overnight. So they launched a rescue. Operation Noah. For 5 years, a team led by Ranger Rupert Fothergill went out in boats and hauled more than 6,000 animals off the drowning land. Elephants, rhinos, lions, zebras, antelope, even snakes, ferrying them one by one to the mainland. Just imagine wrestling a rhino into a boat while an entire valley slowly vanishes underwater behind you. Fact 23. And that lake...
Hey, I'm not gonna hold you. A rhino, fam? Hey, if it's doing too much, it's gonna have to stay, bruh. Because I can't risk my life. It's going to have to stay, y'all.
Is so unbelievably heavy that it fights back. We're talking around 180 billion tons of water pressing down on the ground, and geologists believe that sheer weight actually triggered earthquakes, more than 20 of them above magnitude 5. There's even a name for it: reservoir-induced seismicity. The land literally shook under the load. The local Tonga people have their own explanation, and I think it's a better one. They say it's Nyami Nyami, the river god, still furious at being separated from his wife by the dam. Honestly, after building a lake that causes earthquakes, who's to say they're wrong? Fact 22. Here's a quick one, but a good one. You know the walking safari, right? Exploring the bush on foot instead of from a jeep? That was invented right here in Zambia. A conservationist named Norman Carr pioneered it back in the 1950s in the South Luangwa Valley. And in doing it, he helped invent the whole modern idea of the photographic safari, where you go to watch the animals, not shoot them. A pretty big shift in how the world sees Africa, and it started in one Zambian valley. Fact 21. Here's one that'll surprise you at the jewelers. Zambia produces somewhere between 1/4 and nearly 1/3 of all the emeralds on Earth. Almost all of them from a single place, the Kagem mine in the Copperbelt, thought to be the largest open-pit emerald mine in the world. These stones formed more than 500 million years ago, deep in the rock. And today, Zambian emeralds are second only to Colombia's on the global market. That green you're admiring in the ring? Good chance it came out of the Zambian ground. Fact 20. Now, here's a bit of history that's almost too neat to be true. Zambia is one of the only countries that walked into an Olympic Games as one nation and walked out as another. It showed up at the 1964 Tokyo Olympics as Northern Rhodesia, and on the very day of the closing ceremony, the 24th of October, it became independent Zambia. So the athletes arrived under one flag and one name and went home under a completely different one. Fact 19.
Now, that's actually pretty crazy. Because I know Zimbabwe was Rhodesia. So Zambia was once North Rhodesia.
And where does the name Zambia even come from? You're guessing it right, by the way. It's a river. The whole country is named after the Zambezi, the 4th longest river in Africa, which rises up in Zambia's northwest and then curves down to form much of its southern border. The country didn't name the river. The river named the country. That tells you exactly how much water shapes this place, which, funny enough, is the perfect setup for what's coming. Fact 18. Because Zambia keeps handing over pieces of the human story. Back in 1921, miners blasting into the earth uncovered a skull, the Broken Hill skull, sometimes called the Kabwe skull, and it turned out to belong to an archaic human species, Homo heidelbergensis, estimated at around 299,000 years old. It's one of the best preserved fossils of its kind found anywhere on the planet. First the oldest wooden structure, now one of the most important human skulls ever found. Zambia is quietly full of us. Fact 17. Now, there's a river most people have never heard of doing something incredible. The Kafue is the longest river that flows entirely inside Zambia, nearly 1,600 kilometers, never once crossing a border. And it quietly carries the country. More than half of all Zambians live in its basin, and it supplies the water and power for the capital, Lusaka. One homegrown river holding up half a nation. Fact 16. Now let's talk about Zambia's neighbors. The country borders 8 nations: DR Congo, Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, and Angola.
Goodness.
But look at the far southwest corner, and something rare happens. Zambia sits at one of the only spots on Earth where 4 countries very nearly touch at a single point, a quadrupoint, with Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe right near the Caprivi Strip. There are barely any places like it in the world. Okay, so we're half...
That's actually pretty dope. Imagine being at the center of that and you're at all 4 countries at once.
...way. And let me ask you a question, but don't Google it. Is Zambia bigger or smaller than the state of Texas?
Smaller.
Answers in the comments. Now, let's get back to our video.
What y'all think, y'all? I'm gonna say smaller, bruh. I'm gonna definitely say smaller.
Fact 15. Remember how I said the bats were the biggest migration? Well, Zambia's also got a wildebeest one, and almost nobody's heard of it. Out in the remote Liwa Plain, over 45,000 blue wildebeest sweep across the grassland every year. It's the 2nd largest wildebeest migration in all of Africa.
The other one's in Kenya, I think, right? I think the other one's in Kenya.
Behind only the famous Serengeti. The The difference is there are almost no tourists, just tens of thousands of animals moving across an empty plain, mostly unwatched. Fact 14. And that same plain gave us one of the saddest, strangest animal stories you'll ever hear. Her name was Lady Luwa, a lioness who lived completely alone for around 9 years after poachers wiped out every other lion in the park. She was so desperate for company that she started seeking out humans, just to not be alone. She became the subject of a National Geographic documentary and eventually died of old age in 2017. From this day on, you will always be remembered. Fact 13. Now let's lift the mood with something spectacular. Every year, Zambia stages one of Africa's greatest royal ceremonies, the Kuomboka. When the Zambezi floods the Barotse Plain, the Lutunga, king of the Lozi people, gets paddled to higher ground on a giant black and white barge called the Nalakwanda, topped with a huge model elephant whose ears actually move as it goes. And get this, halfway through the journey, the king changes into a full British admiral's uniform, a gift from King Edward VII back in 1902. A flood, a moving elephant, and a king dressed as an admiral. Fact 12, and now one of my favorite stories in this whole video. In 1964, the very year it became independent, Zambia announced a space program with the goal of beating both America and the Soviet Union to the moon, and then Mars. A schoolteacher named Edward Makuka Unkoloso founded an actual space academy, and to train his Afronauts, he rolled them down hills inside oil drums and taught them to walk on their hands. The plan was to send a teenage girl, 2 cats, and a missionary to Mars. It never launched, obviously, but honestly...
Why the 2 cats, though? Maybe, what's the 2 cats for? For a companion? Like, what?
It's become this legendary, almost beautiful chapter of Afrofuturism. You've got to love the ambition. Fact 11. Now, open a map of Zambia and something looks broken. There's a giant foot-shaped chunk of a different country, the DR Congo, punched deep into its side, almost splitting Zambia in 2. It's called the Congo Pedicle. It is roughly 12,000 square kilometers, making it almost exactly the same size as Wales or New Jersey, and it exists because a Belgian king wanted the fish and game around Lake Bangweulu. To get from one half of Zambia to the other, people have to drive right through Congo because going around it means crossing a giant swamp. Fact 10. Here's a number that puts Zambia in rare company. Somewhere between 30 and 40% of the entire country is set aside for wildlife, 20 national parks and dozens of game management areas. That's one of the highest proportions of protected land of any country on the planet. So that means that up to 4 out of every 10 steps you take in Zambia, you're on land that's been handed back to the animals. Most countries can't come close. Fact 9. Okay, this next one is just plain surreal. Deep in the remote bush of northern Zambia, there is a full English country manor. It's called Shiwa Ngandu, and it was the lifelong obsession of a British aristocrat named Sir Stuart Gore Brown, who started building it in 1920, some 400 miles from the nearest railway. He built an entire self-sufficient village around it, with its own schools and hospital. And this Africa House still stands today. Imagine driving through the African wilderness and stumbling onto a slice of the English countryside. Fact 8. So where did the money for all this come from? One word: copper. Copper is so central to Zambia that it built an entire region, the Copper Belt. And for a long time, Zambia was one of the top copper producers on Earth. It's still Africa's second largest. The metal shaped the economy, shaped the cities, even shaped the country's old colonial-era name. When you talk about Zambia, you're really talking about copper wearing a country like a coat. Fact 7. From the biggest builders to the smallest. In northern Zambia, termites build skyscrapers. And I'm barely exaggerating. Their mounds can reach up to 2 meters tall and 10 meters wide. Each mound creates its own little ecosystem, often growing its own distinct patch of trees around it. Tiny insects, nature's most underrated architects. Fact 6.
Crazy.
Here's how green this country actually is. An estimated 60% of Zambia is covered in natural vegetation, making it one of the greenest countries in all of Africa. A huge chunk of that is Miombo woodland, the vast, dry forest belt that stretches across central southern Africa. This is a country wrapped in forest. Fact 5. Let me show you something that the maps don't. Cutting across northeastern Zambia is a huge natural wall called the Muchinga Escarpment, a steep, forested ridge that rises abruptly out of the plateau and runs for hundreds of kilometers. It catches far more rain than the rest of the country, which is why its slopes are draped in lush forest and grow their own endemic plants and animals. It's cool enough up there that Zambians even grow coffee on it. Fact 4. Let's talk about voices. Zambia is one of the most linguistically dense nations anywhere. Officially, it recognizes 7 local languages plus English. But that's just the official list. The country is actually home to more than 70 languages and dialects across its many ethnic groups. Get your Google Translator ready when you come over here. Fact 3. Even Zambia's flag breaks the rules. Look closely. Notice something weird? Yep, the eagle isn't in the middle. Almost no national flag does that. It's an orange African fish eagle in flight, and it stands for freedom. That orange, by the way, is there specifically to represent the country's mineral wealth. It's copper. Even the flag is quietly bragging about the metal in the ground. Fact 2. Scattered across the ground in southern Zambia are trees turned entirely to stone. A whole petrified forest, frozen for 150 million years, back in the age of the dinosaurs. These were tall conifers, thriving when this hot, dry land was cool and green, until an ancient flood knocked them flat and buried them. And over millions of years, the wood slowly became rock. The wildest part is that if you look closely, you can still count the tree rings in the stone. And finally, fact 1. Here's the quiet miracle of this place. Zambia touches no ocean, not a single meter of coastline, locked deep inside the continent. And yet its rivers reach 2 different oceans. The north drains through the mighty Congo to the Atlantic. The south rides the Zambezi over Victoria Falls to the Indian Ocean. A country the sea never touches, whose rivers still reach opposite ends of the earth. Landlocked, but never truly contained. So that's Zambia. Far more incredible than the world ever gave it credit for. But you know how
Zambia is dope, man. Shout out Zambia. Most surprised of is the going to astronaut, the outer space. Oh, and the Olympics when they went from northern Rhodesia to Zambia. That's pretty crazy for real. But look, man, comment down below y'all thoughts, man. I hope you guys enjoy my reaction. Commentary. Link to this vid will be in the description. Stay tuned. See y'all.